John pulled into his driveway and nearly slammed the brakes when he saw the bright red sold sign planted in his front yard. His heart skipped a beat. Shocked, he glanced at the house, expecting to see a prank or a mistake. Instead, he saw strangers carrying boxes inside his home. For a moment, he thought maybe he had pulled into the wrong driveway. He double-checked the address. No, this was his house. The same porch swing, the same ridiculous garden gnome his wife bought on discount, the same house he had lived in for years. A man in cargo shorts and a woman in yoga pants stood by the moving truck directing movers. They looked settled, content, like they had just found their dream home. John stepped out of his car, his voice shaking with shock. "Excuse me, what the hell is going on here?" The couple turned to look at him, the man raising an eyebrow. Who are you?" John's stomach clenched. "I live here. This is my house." The woman laughed nervously, clutching a folder of documents. "No, it is our house. We just bought it from the homeowner association." John blinked. "The homeowner association?" His voice rose in pure, boiling confusion. "I am not even in a homeowner association," the man sighed, flipping through the papers. "Look, I do not know what is going on, but we legally bought this place. Here is the deed transfer." He held up a paper with his address, but instead of his name, there were two strangers listed as the new residents. John's hands clenched into fists. His pulse raced in his ears. This was not just a mistake. This was a disaster. Then came the smug, nasal voice that made his blood run cold. "Oh, you are back. Did not think you would return so soon." John turned. A woman in her 50s with a stiff blonde bob and a sweater tied around her shoulders like some suburban tyrant, stood on the sidewalk smirking. Karen, the neighborhood meddler, the self-proclaimed president of a homeowner association that did not actually exist. John narrowed his eyes. "Karen, what did you do?" She scoffed, folding her arms. "We, the homeowner association, declared your property vacant after your extended absence. You cannot just leave a house unattended like that. We have rules." John's blood boiled. He had been gone for 3 weeks on a work trip. Not months, not years, 3 weeks. Karen continued, all false sympathy. "Since it was considered abandoned, we exercised our right to claim it and sell it to a responsible new owner. You weren't maintaining the property." The grass got a little long. The mailbox was overflowing. Clear signs of abandonment. John's jaw dropped. "Are you out of your damn mind? You sold my house because my grass was long?" Karen gave a tight, satisfied smile. "It is nothing personal. It is about maintaining neighborhood regulations." John turned to the new homeowners, desperate. "You guys seriously thought this was legal?" The man hesitated, glancing between the paperwork and John. We were told it was a foreclosure. Under homeowner association rules, everything checked out legally." John let out a humorless laugh. "Oh, I guarantee you it did not." But before he could say anything else, the police showed up. Karen, of course, had called them. "There is a trespasser on private property," she said in a mocking voice. John saw red. He was standing on his driveway arguing about his house, and now the cops were looking at him like he was the intruder. One officer stepped forward, resting a hand on his belt. "Sir, I need you to relax." John's voice was shaking from sheer outrage. "Relax? These lunatics just stole my house." The officer sighed, flipping through the documents handed to him by the new homeowners. "This looks like a civil matter. If you have a problem, you will need to take it to court." John's stomach twisted. He had read stories like this before. Homeowners losing their property through fraudulent homeowner associations, loopholes, and legal red tape. But he never imagined it could actually happen to him. Karen smirked. "I suggest you find somewhere else to stay, John. These lovely people actually pay their homeowner association dues." That was it. That was the moment something in John snapped. He was not just going to fight this. He was going to burn her entire fake homeowner association scheme to the ground. He pulled out his phone and made one call. "Mike," he said, voice tight, "I need you to destroy someone in legal hell." Mike's laughter rumbled through the phone. "Oh, someone finally angered you. Enough to call me? John stared at Karen, whose smugness faltered for the first time. Oh, yeah, John said, voice deadly calm. And I want to crush them. Karen's expression flickered. She had no idea who Mike was, but she was about to find out. Because Mike was not just a lawyer, he was a litigation expert who ate homeowner association fraudsters for breakfast. And Karen? She was already panicking. The next morning, John woke up on his best friend's couch, still raging. He had barely slept, replaying every insane moment of the previous day in his head. His house, his own damn house, had been stolen out from under him, and the police had just ignored it and told him to take it to court. If there was any justice in the world, Karen and her ridiculous fake homeowner association should be the ones in handcuffs, not walking around acting like they own the entire neighborhood. Mike, his lawyer and longtime friend, had been way too excited when John explained the situation. The night before, John had expected sympathy, maybe some outrage, but instead Mike had grinned like someone had just handed him a winning lottery ticket. You do not understand, he had said, practically vibrating with excitement. I love taking down fake homeowner associations. This is going to be hilarious. John was not sure what part of his life being turned upside down was supposed to be fun. But he knew one thing. Mike was the best damn lawyer he had ever met. And right now, that was his only chance. By noon, they were sitting in Mike's office, going over every fact. Mike leaned back in his chair, flipping through the paperwork Karen had filed. So let me get this straight. You were gone for 3 weeks, and this lunatic decided your house was abandoned and sold it. John exhaled sharply. Exactly. Because my grass got a little long. Mike whistled. That is a new one. Usually these frauds at least pretend to have real legal support. But this is amateur hour. He flipped to another page and burst out laughing. Oh, my God. Look at this. She literally signed the sales contract herself as the president of the homeowner association. John frowned and Mike's grin widened. And there is no official homeowner association. It does not exist. There is nothing in the county records. No formal organization, nothing. Karen just made it up. John's jaw tightened. So what does that mean? Mike leaned forward. It means she is trapped. And I mean really finish this. Is fraud wire fraud real? Estate fraud, and I can probably argue for theft on a grand scale. Plus, if she collected money from other homeowners in the neighborhood under the false claim of a homeowner association, that is embezzlement. John's rage simmered just under the surface. So we can sue. Mike grinned like a predator. Oh, we are going to do a hell of a lot more than file. Within hours, Mike had drafted a lawsuit so brutal it could have been a medieval punishment. Fraud, property theft, illegal sale of real estate, misrepresentation. Karen was looking at enough charges to drown in legal fees alone. But that was not even the best part. Mike had also filed an injunction to freeze all transactions on the house, which meant that the new homeowners, they could not legally take possession. The house was still tied up in John's name that evening. John and Mike drove back to the neighborhood. The moving truck was still parked outside, but the new homeowners were nowhere to be seen. Karen, however, was standing in the driveway, laughing with a group of residents. John's anger burned hot. He had been planning to avoid a clash, but seeing her standing there acting like nothing had happened was the final trigger. He strode right up to her, watching her expression shift from delight to annoyance. Oh, you again. Karen crossed her arms. I thought you would have moved on by now. John smirked. Oh, I have. I moved on straight to a lawsuit. Karen blinked. Excuse me. Mike stepped forward, waving the thick legal document in front of her face. Congratulations, Karen. You are being sued for fraud, theft, and about a dozen other things that are going to financially destroy you. Karen's smugness wavered. You cannot. Oh, I can. Mike interrupted smoothly. And I already did. In fact, I have also reported you to the county fraud department, real estate commission, and oh yeah, the IRS. Because I have a feeling you have not been paying taxes on all that illegal homeowner association money you have been hoarding. Karen's face lost a little color. This is absurd. John folded his arms. Is it because the judge did not seem to think so when he froze the sale of my house? Those poor buyers you tricked. Yeah, they legally cannot move. The sale is void. And you just committed a major offense. Karen sputtered. You cannot sue the homeowner association. We have guidelines. Mike actually laughed. You do not even have a homeowner association, Karen. You made it up. There is no board, no legal filings, nothing. You just decided you were in charge and started cheating people. Karen opened her mouth, then shut it again. Her confidence had cracked, but she was not ready to collapse just yet. This is just a misinterpretation. She tried her voice a little higher now. I was just trying to protect property standards. Mike shook his head. Yeah, tell that to the judge. Oh, wait. You will have plenty of time to do that next week when you stand in court. Karen's eye twitched. She was starting to understand this was not just a mild issue. She was in serious legal jeopardy. John smirked. Oh, and one more thing. Since you technically sold my house under fake pretenses, I'm also suing for compensation. Karen gulped. Compensation? Mike grinned. Yeah, we are talking pain and suffering, loss of property use, and my personal favorite, emotional trauma. Karen's face twisted. You cannot do this, John, laughed Karen. I already did. She spun on her heel and marched away, but her usual smugness was gone. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, John felt like he had the upper hand. As they got back in the car, John exhaled deeply, tension leaving his body. God, that felt good. Mike chuckled. Oh, trust me, the best part has not even begun yet. When we get to court, that is when she will really suffer for messing with you. John nodded. He was not just fighting for his house. He was about to end Karen's entire fake kingdom. The day of the court hearing arrived faster than John expected. He sat outside the courtroom with Mike running a hand through his hair as the truth of the situation settled in. The last few days had been a whirlwind of legal filings, frozen transactions, and Karen trying and failing to manipulate her way out of the mess she had created. She had sent passive-aggressive emails, attempted to talk the new homeowners into working things out, and even called in some of her fake homeowner association followers to vouch for her. None of it worked. The law was on John's side, and now it was time to prove it. When the bailiff finally called them in, John stood tall, his heart pounding as he walked into the courtroom. Karen was already seated at the defendant's table, looking more uneasy than usual, the confidence, the smug superiority gone. In its place was a woman who knew she was in deep trouble, but was still grasping at any last shred of control. The judge, an older man with a serious face and a strict attitude, looked over the case file for a long moment before adjusting his glasses. Let me get this straight, he said, glancing at Karen. You, as president of a homeowner association, sold this man's house because you believed it was deserted. Karen cleared her throat and lifted her chin. Yes, Your Honor. As per homeowner association guidelines, abandoned properties are subject to repossession and resale to maintain neighborhood appearance. The judge flipped a page in the file. According to the county records, there is no registered homeowner association in this neighborhood. Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. That is a mistake. Mike let out a quiet chuckle, and John had to fight the urge to smile. The judge was already displeased. This was going to be easier than expected. The judge turned his sharp gaze back to Karen. And you were the sole person responsible for overseeing this sale? Karen nodded. Yes, as the acting president of the homeowner association. Mike stood up. Your Honor, let us be clear about something. She was not acting as the president of anything. This homeowner association does not exist in any legal form. There was never a vote, no registration, no tax filings, no board. She just took it upon herself to invent power and then use that to commit fraud. Karen scoffed. That is not true. Mike smirked. Then please provide the court with the official homeowner association records. Karen hesitated. I do not have it with me at the moment. The judge frowned. Do you have it at all? Silence. Mike folded his arms. Interesting. because according to county records, she filed fake paperwork declaring herself the homeowner association president 3 days after selling the plaintiff's home. Meaning, Your Honor, she committed real estate fraud by operating under false pretenses. John had never seen someone wriggle so hard in their seat. The judge exhaled slowly and turned to Karen. Miss Langley, do you have an actual legal argument here? Because so far, all I'm seeing is fraudulent behavior, a completely fabricated organization, and one of the most blatant abuses of property law I have ever seen. Karen's face flushed red. Your Honor, I was only trying to protect the neighborhood. There are regulations. The judge held up a hand. There are no rules because there is no homeowner association. You acted on personal authority that you did not have, forged legal documents, and unlawfully transferred property that was never yours to begin with. He turned to Mike, requesting full damages. Mike nodded. Absolutely. Property loss damages, emotional distress, legal fees, and because she has been collecting illegal homeowner association dues from multiple residents for years. We are also filing a group lawsuit. Karen's mouth opened, then closed. John could almost hear the fear setting in. The judge leaned forward. And just how many residents have been paying into this non-existent homeowner association, Mike? Slid a file across the table. According to these bank records, dozens. She has been running a full-fledged fraud for years. The courtroom was silent for a long moment. Then the judge sighed. Miss Langley, do you have anything to say for yourself before I make my decision? Karen swallowed hard. I was only trying to assist. The judge looked completely unimpressed. Assist yourself, maybe. My ruling is as follows. The sale of the plaintiff's home is null and invalid. The property legally belongs to Mr. Callahan. Additionally, Miss Langley is ordered to pay all associated legal fees and return every penny she has ever collected from the residents under false homeowner association claims. Lastly, she will be referred to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges related to fraud and real estate deception. Karen's entire body sagged. The smugness, the superiority, it all collapsed. She had lost. John let out a breath he had not realized he had been holding. It was finished by the time they left the courtroom. The news had already spread. Other scammed homeowners were furious, and Karen's house, which was legally still hers for now, had a growing crowd of angry residents outside demanding their money back. Mike grinned as they walked toward the parking lot. That was almost too simple. John smirked. I have a feeling Karen is going to have a really miserable week. Mike chuckled. Try the rest of her life. A few weeks later, John was finally back in his house. Everything had been returned to normal. Well, almost everything. Karen had disappeared from the neighborhood, forced to sell her own home to cover her debts. The IRS was looking into her accounts, and from what John heard, they were not pleased. The new homeowners had thankfully gotten their money back from the fraudulent transaction and had moved on, probably regretting ever dealing with Karen in the first place. John stood on his front porch sipping his coffee when a familiar car pulled up. Mike stepped out, looking entirely too satisfied with himself. Thought I would drop by and see the kingdom you fought so hard for, he said, eyeing the house still standing. No new homeowner association signs? John laughed. Nope, and if anyone even mentions the word homeowner association to me again, I might actually snap. Mike smirked. Well, in that case, you might be interested in this. He handed John an envelope. Confused, John opened it and stared at the paper. It was a foreclosure notice for Karen's house. John's eyebrows shot up. You bought her house? Mike grinned. Not yet, but the bank is selling it off next month. Thought you might want to bid on it. John looked at the letter, then at the empty house across the street. A slow smile spread across his face. Oh, he said, taking another sip of coffee. I adore that idea. And just like that, the final blow in Karen's downfall was set. The fake homeowner association queen had lost everything. And John, he had won in the best way imaginable.